I want to introduce Mr. Abhijit Banerjee, Nobel Laureate in Economics. Thank you very much, Abhijit ji. My first question to you is, this is an area which we want to ask you questions about, which goes right to your heart. You know, the health of our children, the health of our society and its impact on the economy. Not just looking at pure economy, the point that we were making right now, but the sources of better economic growth. How important is health? And has India paid enough attention to it?
I think India has not paid enough attention to it. This has been said many times, but I think we've sort of jugaad the healthcare system. Healthcare system is kind of the classic jugaad in the sense that we know we don't have enough doctors in rural areas, and we've relied throughout on people who call themselves doctors, who are what unfortunately are often called Bengali doctors, which means they are not actually qualified. That's a Bengali doctor in Rajasthan. It's people with no degrees whatsoever. And so these people, they provide most of the healthcare. 80% of the first visit in rural India are to these people, and 80% of them have no qualifications whatsoever. So, and that's the first line of defense. And we've sort of relied on that while constantly insisting that these people either do not exist or should not exist, and we should try to regulate them out of existence. So we don't actually kind of negotiate with what's the front line of delivery of healthcare. So that's a classic jugaad system where, for you and me, we get to go to nice hospitals where there are very qualified people, super world-class people, and then most of the rest of the country just does it how they can, which is in an extremely imperfect way. So this has been described for many years as the state of the Indian healthcare sector. It's been something that we haven't really negotiated with. Now I think we're both forced to confront that fact, and maybe even a little bit, I see in some places more of a willingness to accept the facts on the ground and start making things. And the pandemic really lit a fire under all of us. And so there was a willingness to say, okay, let's just do what we can. The ashas were often redeployed to do things. Our ashas are the sort of the bottom layer of the healthcare system. They have zero medical training, but they were trained. So there was a lot of sort of awareness of the kind of how our fictional healthcare system, which ends at the really with the trained healthcare, with the ANMs in the sub-centers, is not actually delivering. And I think that's in the end, that might be a good thing, to have a clear recognition that we need to do more to actually somehow deal with the reality on the ground.
Actually, that's actually spot on, that people at least now realize one of the positive outcomes of this pandemic is that people realize that we need better healthcare systems. Particularly, as you were saying, that the front line when you have Dr. Jugars. By the way, I have strong objection to saying Bengali doctor. We'll talk about that later. Bengali doctors, we leave that for the moment. There are all kinds of other doctors. Amitabh?
There's only one doctor on the stage.
And he's definitely a and he's definitely a fake doctor. So the point is that these jugaad doctors, what should we do? Should we, like a lot of people are doing, they're on the ground, they're everywhere. Should we train them? Is that one way to go? Take them one step up, make sure that they know their limitations, but at least spend money on them, or should we spend money on medical colleges and education and much more formal doctors? Or is that a short-term solution, is look after jugaad doctors, or in fact look after Bengali doctors everywhere? Or is there a long-term solution where we build hospitals and educational institutions? What should we do?
Yeah, so I think the very long term, we should definitely have everybody at a much higher level of training. I think that's been the position of all the institutional figures in the Indian healthcare sector. And I think that's, for the long run, that's clearly, we want no one without a some kind of degree practicing healthcare. I'm with that. In the short run, we know that that's not even close to being practical. We can't even keep the, we have some rules which say that, if you get public healthcare training, you are supposed to spend some time in rural areas, but in fact, very few people do. So there are just the PHCs where there are typically supposed to be trained doctors. You go there, and the cleaning person is there typically, but no one else. Maybe a nurse. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the number of doctors we need, and we don't have the capacity to actually enforce that they show up to work in rural areas. You can post them, but they will just not come. And we know that, nurse attendance rate, something we did measure, could be as low as 25%. So these things are, our enforcement capacity is very limited. And given that, I think we need to be realistic and start training these Bengali doctors.